Welcome, dear friends of Autogefühl, today to a very special episode with one of the most anticipated cars of the year, the all-new Volvo XC90. We already presented you the car in a static way at the world premiere, for example. Now today we can finally also drive it. We'll take a detailed look at the exterior, the interior, and of course also at the driving. And we will have different engines to test as well. This one here, to start with this one, is the new top version, the T8. This is the plug-in hybrid. So we got the biggest petrol engine here, 320 horsepower plus 80 horsepower from an electric engine. And we also have the diesel, the top diesel, 225 horsepower, and just the top petrol engine, 320 horsepower in our review here today. So we're starting here with the design. This one is a top version, top trim level, Inscription. It usually starts at Kinetic, then there's a trim level of Momentum, the middle trim level, and then there's the top trim level with Inscription, or the R design, the sporty design level. This one is Inscription, the best you can get and the most elegant you can get. And just from the base design, which every new XC90 will have, is this new huge front grille with vertical lines and this rather classic Volvo logo, which is kind of reminding us of old Volvo logos. So it's a bit of a mix between the old and the new style. Which is quite prominent here is the lower bumper lip here, kind of a little bit angular here on that side. So that one also creates a very strong atmosphere. And what I personally like are those chrome elements in the lower right for the air intakes. And then, of course, the most unique features is here, so-called Thor's Hammer headlight. Some of you already said, well, the new Audi A7 facelift also has something like that, just from the daytime running light. And we see when it's on later that we have really this T-form, so the daytime running light does not continue the line of the headlight here in the front. From the side profile we see, well, they have really decided we go to that classical, rather angular SUV shape, the full SUV shape. You know, there are also other types of cars now. There's the BMW X6, for example, or the new Mercedes GLE Coupe, which more go to this round coupe style. They really want to have a lot of space on the inside, and this new version is now 4.95 meters long. That's 15 centimeters longer than the predecessor, and also this new generation got broader and in general more spacious, almost 3 meters of wheelbase. About the rear, this one is now 20-inch alloy, so the top alloy is really huge, and you still got a lot of tire, so it's still fitting for your off-road rides. With the Inscription trim level here, you see we have this beautiful lower chrome line here below the doors, especially for that version. What is also quite unique are the new door handles here, where we see a chrome element around it, a chrome frame, but then we got the color of the car again on the top side. This one, by the way, is the keyless entry, so you see I close the car now. If I just wave my hand here again, I can also open it again, or just if I just pull the door here with my hand. So, and continuing to the rear line. We see we still got a lot of window space here, so that's really saying I'm the rather classic full-size SUV. I want to offer a lot of space and don't want to offer this coupe line, and that will also bring a lot of space for the passengers on the inside, on the rear. And we also got optional 7 seats here as well, so that is kind of a unique feature here as well. Then we got a rather huge rear wing, which gets some dynamic, and then what we already know from the predecessor or also from the current XC60 are those shaped rear lights. And well, they had also something which is kind of unique for the Volvo design. Hardly anyone else has this, so this is kind of a signature Volvo rear light meanwhile. So, and looking just from the rear back here, we got some new chrome elements here also with the Inscription version, so everything is really elegant here now. But we will also see later in our review, when we go to another trim level, it's not all about the Inscription trim level from the outside, just also the basic new XC90 looks really amazing. So let's get into the interior. I'll first take a seat on the co-driver seat so I can explain you the driver position very well. We got a new panoramic roof, which lets a lot of light here in the interior. You see I still get some sunshine from the roof now, from the panoramic roof. This one is actually the biggest panoramic roof that has ever been built in a Volvo. And then we see this is really so totally new, that interior. There's just one feature here on the interior which was carried over from the predecessor version. I'll show you later. Everything else is really new. Here in this Inscription version we got everything in it. This car as it stands here right now, it should be like 90,000 euros, approximately 80 to 90, because you really got everything in it, and you also got the plug-in hybrid. A usual Volvo XC90, for example, in Germany now with a 225 horsepower diesel is about 53,000 euros, and there will also be an entry version later, a little bit less horsepower for the diesel and also for the petrol engine, and then it will also go below 50,000 euros. Here in this Inscription version you got the leather dashboard, and we also have the optional Bowers and Wilkins sound system, 19 speakers, and they say it's really top of all sound systems, and we'll listen to it later on and can tell you something more about it. About the seats, they are also, as we used from Volvo, very luxurious. I really can confirm that Volvo has the best seats on the market right now. Also, if you just pick an old S60 or an XC60 or whatever, but here we got the they say improved seats. We'll talk more about that later when we're driving. These were also the Inscription seats we see here with the Inscription logo, and they really make a very good impression and also look already very comfortable. Well, a new steering wheel, I think it's rather disappointing, because these plastic buttons here, you know, it's shiny on the upside and with a black background. This one actually looks a bit cheap. I'm not too pleased by this, but in general the steering wheel is quite okay. And I'm also not a fan of this hard plastic cover here for the airbag, but it's also always a case of regulations. You don't know what you can actually build there. Here, maybe you've seen that on the vents we see a sign with clean zone, and that is especially important for the new Chinese customers. Volvo will be will have the most important market for China now. Clean zone means that there's an extensive filter system, so the air gets really clean, and if you're in a polluted city, for example in Beijing or whatever, that might be very important for you. In this T8 plug-in hybrid top version, we also got a glass shifting lever for the automatic gearbox. This one was very unique, but it cannot consist only of glass. You need this aluminum cover due to safety regulations, because this glass structure had to be also kind of crash tested, that you know, it doesn't get ripped apart in a crash and injures the passengers. Quite often interesting detail here. And then you see there's this very clean dashboard. We don't have so many buttons here, only 8 buttons in the lower part here, and then we have this central screen here. And I can also show you something of the screen then, because this one is really the most unique thing here for the new Volvo, totally new system. So let's see, there it is. So we have basically 4 columns here: navigation, media for music, phone, and here, for example, we got another option for the sound experience, but you can also put something else there. Maybe the most important functions first. You can always access the climate functions below here. Okay, secret resolved. We had to start the engine actually to control the temperature here, so that's also an important information. Then again, we can also slide or just press, or we can use plus and minus here on the touch pad. We have had a discussion so far if that's really a useful option, that you cannot actually control the climate via extra buttons. You save some more space here with the buttons, but you know, I'm rather a fan of controlling the temperature with a knob or something like that. I'm not sure if I really like that. It is a clean and very shiny solution, of course, but I would rather prefer it as a button. I think Audi has a good solution there from the mix between using buttons and doing the rest with the central screen. Here it's maybe a little bit too much in the central screen, but in general it looks quite fancy, of course. Not as huge as, for example, in the Tesla, but just from the resolution and how you can control everything. Looking at the GPS here now, for example, it's also very easy, very intuitive to control. For example, you can zoom in, zoom out, or just go inside the map here. Then if you slide to the right, you can also pick the radio, or you connect your Bluetooth, phone, and so on. So everything quite easy and intuitive. We got a weather app here, how we can see. Need an internet connection for that, of course. So, well, it's a lot to play around with, but you know, at the end of the day, it also counts for about how does the car really drive. You see here now 15 degrees, very nice. Okay, what is quite neat here is this checkered structure here around the buttons. Actually, these buttons are just there because in this kind of number, because they have to be there from governmental regulations. For example, the warning sign, or the heating for the windows, for example. So very interesting interior design here. Also for the cup holders, for example, everything feels high class. And Volvo says from their already 16,000 sold cars worldwide, 2,000 in Germany, they say they have already a lot, like 40% of customers from Audi, BMW and Mercedes, and I can really understand why, because this whole interior looks so much more special than, for example, with Audi, BMW and Mercedes. Of course, every brand has its, you know, unique features and what maybe fans especially like, but this one really has something special we haven't seen before, and if you like something special, you really find something nice here. We also talked about it in other Volvos. We have a frameless rear mirror. That's also a nice feature here, by the way. This signals me where I'm driving to, northeast, so it's kind of a small compass in here for now. So at the first sight, I'm quite amazed by this interior, especially by the seats and also by the structures here. Everything feels high class. We know with some little flaws here, for example, with the buttons at the steering wheel or the airbag cover. That's, you know, we've seen it better, for example, in a Mercedes or in an Audi, but you know, there can't be any feature that is really better than the other one. Really like the Bowers & Wilkins style, though, of the central speakers and also the speakers inside of the doors, and also the door handles, also very well designed. So, Now let's switch seats with our cameraman that I get in the rear department. So let's see, as we don't have the coupe form now, we should also have more space. By the way, also the door handles feels very heavy, so it's kind of interesting because you see this detail here, it's not only flipping here, it's also flipping a little bit on the inside. That feels kind of unique, very, very nice actually. So let's see. Actually, I haven't put the seat as I would be driving. It's rather way back, so I would put it more in the front. But still, then I got a lot of legroom. So actually, legroom is not really something you could think about if I put the seat more to the front as I would be driving. Really, it's maybe rather like that. So you will. No matter how tall you are, you will always have space here in the rear department. Also pretty nice with the side vent here, we know that from Volvo. Headroom, although we got this huge panoramic roof, I still have this kind of headroom with my 1.86 m, so that's also great. And that wall will also be a unique feature in comparison to these SUV coupe models, because you will always have more headroom here. And then there's also the back seats. We'll take a look at them quite soon for the 7-seat options. It's not too hard to put them up, but we'll first take a look at the trunk then. Here in general, I can also adjust the seat to the front and the back. That's good because I can access the rear and I can also lengthen the trunk, for example. And that's actually possible for every single 3 seats. For example, I can also put the middle seat a little bit in the front and back again. So very practical. And I got the climate control in the central. If you come over here, it's also very nicely done. Well, it catches a little bit of dust here on this screen, but at least we have this control function here. The back side of the seats, that's kind of a little, well, rather cheaper structure, but you only conceive this as cheap because everything else feels really so high class. We don't really see from the outside that this one is the hybrid engine. We only see here it says twin engine and T8 with the inscription. So this twin engine really signals us this is a car. About the trunk opening, well, there are several ways. I could push the key and then it opens automatically. I could also open it here. So we open it with the key then here. And then, well, this is kind of, I wonder why this doesn't go any more up, but because I'm touching with my head. So then I can just flip it to the back, and then you can see we have a huge trunk really. Goes far away in there, and also the back seats are totally hidden and you have an even flat ground. I'm not sure about this cover. This looks like it would get, I don't know, a little bit. I'm not sure about that one. Not too convinced. But I can show you then, by the way, this is a key. Very beautiful key. With artificial leather on the outside. I think it's artificial leather. Very nicely done. And then you will now see this experiment, how I remove the cover. I just put it to the ground that we're not disturbed by that. And now it gets exciting because we now first go around here to the rear seats. Then we have to flip the switch at the lower part here, that we can pull it to the front. To make it even easier, it's also possible to move the seat a little bit to the front, and then we can pull up this lever and move up the rear seat. You see, it's a kind of a full seat. It looks really high class. And by the way, before I forget, you can also easily flip the headrest up. And the same actually works for the other seat here. So pretty easy. Very well done. And then you also have, well, they say 1.70 meters for the 7th seat. But I can try to climb in now. It's not too easy, but you know, it's easier than, for example, in the Nissan X-Trail. And well, I would not sit here for a long time. It depends on how far you get the rear bench to the front, but I think just from a headroom size, it's even okay. I got the belt here, it's no problem. It's rather about the knees, I must say. So you would have to move the bench to the front, but actually that's a good solution, because sometimes you want to even maybe transport more people, and then you have the solution and you don't lose much trunk here in the back. So a very nice solution here, and that's also a unique feature for the Volvo in this class here. So before driving, this is how you fuel it up, the petrol engine. All 4 cylinders, by the way, now from Volvo. And then if we go around the car, next to the driver door, we got the plug-in. So this is where you put the cable. 2 hours charging time, and the electric range just from the electric is supposed to be 50 kilometers. You know, in everyday life it will maybe be rather like 30 kilometers, I think, even when it's colder, for example. But 50 kilometers is the official figure for that. Then you've seen, maybe I've already opened. So let's take a look beneath the hood. So this one is the hybrid engine now, the usual petrol one, plus the electric engine. And the all-wheel drive here works in that way that the petrol engine is just powering the front wheels, and the electric drive the rear wheels. Usually with a 320 horsepower petrol engine, you get the normal all-wheel drive front plus rear, usually 95% front, 5% rear, and then even more power can be transferred to the rear wheels, of course. But here in this hybrid version, it's kind of split. You don't have the classic all-wheel drive, just the electric drive is for the rear wheels. And just a short excursion how it looks beneath that. This is actually the basic layout of the T8 engine. So we see in the central part, this is actually the battery placed in the middle and at the bottom of the car, so the weight is also in the center. And then we can see beneath the hood, we saw actually that one. This is a power splitter, so the power from the battery can also be used, for example, here for the climate control. So this one is used for that as well. Then if we continue on to the back, there we see how the power from the central battery is actually delivered to the rear engine. Rear electric engine, of course. Pretty impressive. So, gentlemen, start your engines, and we do it right below here. It's not a button where you push it. By the way, this crystal frame here is very nice in my opinion. We actually turn to the side, and then we don't hear any engine popping up because we have the hybrid drive here. We have a full digital instrument here in the central view, tempo meter and RPM meter on each side, and the central screen can be adjusted. For example, you can also put the GPS in there, for example, or personal info. Then we have the automatic shifter, neutral, put it back to D. Then we have the hybrid, and I can just release the brake. Then we're starting, and we don't make any sound, just the wheels are making the sound. And that's of course very impressive, because you also wouldn't expect that from such a huge car, that you don't hear any sound. So we can see it, for example, here now in the central screen. We got every information we want to have. And now let's listen to it. Okay, that's the home button. Let's check out the GPS, how it shows GPS. Oh, it's nice and sunny here now. So let's scroll in with GPS, and you immediately realize you should really get used to this system first, because when you're driving it shouldn't distract you actually. But then you can see the GPS now is also in my central screen, so that's a good solution that you don't get distracted by the huge screen in the middle. So very silent driving. Of course, the usual petrol engine set in now, but there's not a moment where you actually hear, oh, that's the petrol engine now, because it's so silent in general. Okay, first small bumps here I'm going over, then we feel it's a huge car, also with the air suspension we got here in the top version. The steering wheel actually feels quite small for such a heavy car, I must say. I also got a head-up display in my view. So actually by this very small steering wheel, the whole car feels smaller. It doesn't really feel like a full-size SUV. If you compare it, for example, also to the XC60, right now I couldn't really say this car is much larger than the XC60, but it is, of course. But just from the feeling, sitting in here and controlling the car, it doesn't feel like that. Also the hybrid is contributing to that, because when I'm at very low speeds, the petrol engine is turned off in this hybrid mode and I can really hear nothing. So the sound isolation is also very good here, at least what we feel now from the low speeds here. And for example, you can drive with the electric only inside the city. There's also a drive selector here with the drive mode in the middle, also with a very nice crystal structure. And I can just flip it around. Just first press it. And then when I've pressed it once, we see the central screen here. Now we're in hybrid mode. Again, so. But I can also put it to pure. And then we really just have the electric drive. So if you want to maybe proximity to your neighborhood and you don't want to pollute any of the air or something like that, or just want to be very silent in the night, that's a good solution. Of course, if the battery is filled up. When we're just parking in and parking out here, actually the car also feels very light, and it's especially nice when we got the hybrid drive here, because we're so silent, and also when the petrol sets in, really remains silent. I can also put it here to another one. Actually, off-road would be 4 centimeters going up for the suspension. Power and also eco means 2 centimeters lower for the air suspension. And now in the power mode, I also got the power combination of the electric engine and the petrol engine. Well, just for the most acceleration, and it's 5.9 seconds from 0 to 100 then. That's really amazing for such a heavy SUV. And if I just put the throttle down here now, there's a test. Wow, you really get a huge boost, and it's also very uncommon for an SUV. The car really gets light, you almost feel like flying, because the combination of accelerating that hard together with the air suspension, that's something I've never felt before. That's, well, of course we know something of that in the from something like the Porsche Cayenne. But you know, the Porsche Cayenne has a stiffer suspension, so you feel more the connection to the road. Here, you got this rather comfortable suspension and don't have the direct connection to the road. I mean, if you then push the throttle, the car really feels light, because, you know, it's getting leaned to the back from the acceleration. Really interesting fact here as well. It still weighs 2 tons, depending on the engine, but they have saved some 100 kilograms of weight. About the turning circle. Now I really have to turn the car very fast now. And actually, well, of course it's a huge car, but because the steering is that light, it actually feels quite good to control it. It's also no problem to turn it fast. Now we get to some rock bottom. And we still have very comfortable SUV feeling here.